Hey, this is Nicole Kelly, host of Loud and Proud. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we hang out and just talk movie and TV news and reviews, and it's awesome. A new show comes out every single Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Cinema Stories. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. I'm Emily, and I'm here today with my co-host Elisabeth, and in lieu of the recent romantic holiday on Wednesday, we wanted to honor some of the famous, or possibly infamous, couples in the geek world.
While romance isn't necessarily always a big part of story arcs, it does tend to pop up here and there, whether obvious and out in the open, or possibly secretive and in the subtext. So get comfy, dig into that box of chocolates, because we're going to be talking about our favorite fandom couples, whether they're canon or not. So in my list of my personal favorite couples, one of my absolute favorite, it's a really big power couple in Marvel, is T'Challa and Ororo Munroe, also known as Black Panther and Storm. They are just, when you think of a typical power couple, this is the couple you think of. They are both very strong, mostly independent people, but when they come together, they just complement each other so well. They just, mesh, and they're just fantastic together. And, now since Disney has acquired Fox, and therefore acquired the X-Men, I'm kind of wondering if we could potentially, possibly, maybe get to see the royal wedding that was featured in the comics, because that was breathtaking. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has read those comics, but it was just absolutely amazing to watch that unfold. It was the royal wedding come up between Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. I'm sorry, that's going to have nothing on Storm and Black Panther.
Yeah. No, and I'm interested in this pair up because honestly, I didn't even consider the crossover between Avengers and X-Men at all, even though they are both Marvel. So that would be a really, really great pair, though.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. So my first one, in no particular order, we're just kind of listing off the couples that we either ship together or that are actual couples in the particular fandom. So the first one that I have, I picked Amy Pond and Rory Williams. I mean, okay, Rory is the best. He waited around like 2,000 years for Amy, which also technically makes him older than the Doctor when they cross paths a little bit towards the end there, because the Doctor is, like 900 some? So, that's a little side note. But no matter how much, there's a ton of subtext for Amy and Matt Smith's Doctor, but there's to be a thing. But Amy always chooses Rory no matter what. She always chooses him because he's the best, and Rory would do anything for Amy, and I just love it so much. And Rory's the best.
I haven't gotten quite that far in my viewing of Doctor Who, so I haven't gotten into them yet, but I really can't wait to see that dynamic on screen.
Yeah, I think you'll really, really enjoy it, because at first you don't really meet... Well, okay, I won't give a ton away, because you meet them and you know that they're a thing right away. But the dynamic is interesting as it unfolds. So yeah, that'll be fun to watch for you.
Definitely. Now another one of my absolute favorite couples. I actually made a little graphic for this couple because I love them so much. They're Monroe and Rosalie from the TV series Grimm. I don't think y'all have talked about Grimm before on the podcast.
We've not.
So just a little bit of background information for anybody who hasn't seen the show. I highly recommend it, by the way. It's kind of similar in premise to Supernatural, but there's a little bit of a different twist, because where Supernatural is dealing with, obviously, supernatural stuff, the supernatural stuff in Grimm is actually completely natural, and the creatures are actually a species called Vessin. And so all the different fairy tales you hear are actually stories of Wesen. So Monroe is a Blutbad, or a werewolf in legend, and Rosalie is a Fuchsbau, or a fox creature. And from the moment that they meet, it's just this cute little fluffy romance, and it just develops into this strong couple that is just so supportive. Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the most healthy relationships that I've really seen portrayed. And it's definitely the best relationship in Grimm itself. I mean,
that's awesome.
That's total couple goals. Like I said, I made a graphic for them before I had met my husband, and I said, I want to meet a man that looks at me the way Monroe looks at Rosalie, because the way he looks at her, it's just total starry eyes. It's fantastic.
Oh, yes. And that makes me think of my next one, because I have Zoe and Washburn from Firefly, and total couple goals again. Like, they'll have their spats from time to time, you know, and they don't always agree on everything perfectly, but I mean, what couple does, right? And seriously, those two just have nothing but eyes for each other. They wouldn't even think of looking another way. And they're kind of unexpected in the show, because Zoe is the number 2 ranking person on the ship, and Wash is the pilot, not the captain. So you'd expect Zoe to be into the captain, Malcolm Reynolds, because they actually have a history together. They were fought in a war together, Zoe and Mal did. But she chose Wash, and Wash was extremely happy about that, because, you know, she's this, like, strong, powerful woman, and he's this, like, goofball of a guy, and they just really complement each other super well.
Yeah, I really like that couple, because they kind of turn that typical dynamic on its head, whereas the man is usually seen as this big, strong, imposing, you know, person, and then the scene is slightly more goofy and eccentric, and, you know, they just totally turn it around, and it works so well between them. You can't help but watch them and say they are just absolutely perfect together.
You gotta love it. It's wonderful. Yeah. So if you haven't seen Firefly yet, I have to put in another plug here. Watch it to see Wash and Zoe.
You need to see it.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Now, my next is a little bit slightly unorthodox. It has been in canon, but it's not necessarily the biggest pairing for this particular character. One of my favorite characters from Batman is Harley Quinn. And most people think of the Joker when they think of a significant other for Harley. But honestly, my favorite significant other for her is Poison Ivy, or also known as Pamela Isley. They have been together in the comics before, and it's a much more healthy dynamic for Harley and even for Pamela in general. They're very obviously supportive of each other, and they really bring out each other's good qualities, whereas before, Harley's just kind of a bit psychotic and just kind of impulsive, and Poison Ivy is just more of very cold and uncaring and unsympathetic. When they're together, it's completely different. Harley is a lot more calm. She's more focused. She, you know, doesn't have those impulsive tendencies as much. And at the same time, Poison Ivy becomes much more caring and nurturing towards her. And it's just great to see couples that really complement each other and bring out each other's good qualities. That's what couples are supposed to do for each other, you know?
Yeah, and that's interesting too, how even though everyone does think of the Joker, that it is in some of the comics for those two. So that is an interesting aspect of it as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so my next couple I have never happened in any of the canon, but it was kind of alluded to in one of the movies, is Luna and Neville from Harry Potter. I really think they would have been a great fit if J.K. Rowling had written it in. And, they're both a little on the goofy side. They have their own strengths. They have their own oddities about them. But I would have really, really enjoyed to see a relationship unfold between the two of them. And there was a nod to it in one of the movies. I forget which one, but I'm like, it got me super excited. I was so excited. Yes. And then it didn't do anything else. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we can just wonder.
Yeah, it was the Deathly Hallows Part 2. It was at the very end of the battle. She sits down with Neville, and they kind of do those little googly eyes at each other. And it's like the instant I saw that, I'm just like, yep. I ship it. Like,
Yep.
I hadn't really thought about it before that moment, but I'm like, yep, I ship it now.
Yes, yep, exactly. Like, and I had been interested in seeing what Luna and Neville would have panned out as while I was, I think while I was watching the movies, more so than finishing up the books. But I really enjoyed that they threw that little look in there in the movie, because I'm like, yep. It got me excited.
I don't know if they did that intentionally, or if, you know, they're like, oh, well, okay, we have these two characters, they aren't really attached to each other, so let's just put them together, you know? But,
Yeah,
you know,
who knows?
either way, I absolutely love that it was in there.
Yes, totally. Yes, makes me super happy. Luna and Neville. Oh, that would have been so cute.
And my next couple isn't canon either, although there is a ton of subtext for this one, is Dean Winchester and Castiel from Supernatural. It is getting to the point of getting kind of frustrating for some of the fans, because they see, you know, all this there's, I mean, just tons and tons of subtext. I mean, there's so many posts just breaking down, you know, all of the different aspects of their relationship and what it hints at and alludes to. And, you know, the fact that they haven't come on, you know, and either just totally shut it down or made it canon is just so frustrating, because it's like, you know, gay couples we don't really get a whole lot of representation of, at least a whole lot of good representation of, and it would be really nice to see that, especially with having, you know, characters that are unstereotypical of, you know, gay men that are typically put into shows and movies and stuff like that. So, I mean, but whether it's canon or not, honestly, the love shared between the fallen angel and the righteous man, in my opinion, is just absolutely epic. Just deep and overflowing, and I ship this to the very end. This is the ship I will live and die on, I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah. I'm not too familiar with the whole supernatural realm, so obviously, as you guys have probably figured out by now. But yeah, and my next couple then I pick is also not canon, but it's from Stargate SG-1 between Jack O'Neill and Samantha Carter. I just there gets to be a point in the 10 seasons of those two being together. Well, okay, they're not in 10 seasons together because Jack leaves after a little while, but he pops up every once in a while toward the end as well. So like he's still in it, I guess, throughout all 10 seasons. He just doesn't play the same role towards the end. But Sam is in it. She's in almost every single episode. And I think she only missed like 4 episodes. And I just, it's frustrating because due to Jack being Sam's commanding officer, they are not officially allowed to have romantic relationship things because people are silly. And and it's sad. There is even an episode about what if they did actually become a couple in real life, and there's allusions to it throughout other episodes too, because they go to alternate dimensions and they go through. There's this one episode where Jack is stuck in a time loop, and so you know he kind of does whatever he wants after a while. It's hilarious, but it's just they would have been fantastic. And there were a couple moments toward the end of Jack's role where he was her commanding officer, where he like really strongly hinted that, you know, like, I kind of want to be with you, but I kind of can't. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, So, and the episode where like where they're in the alternate dimension or alternate universe where they actually were a couple might have been a little bit of fan service, but I'm okay with that because fan service is, people like it, you know?
It's fan service for a reason.
Exactly. So it was just, yeah.
It's just fantastic. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen any Stargate SG-1, so I don't really know a whole lot about them, but you kind of make me want to watch it, so
yeah. Yeah, they're not like
list.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a great show. Mm-hmm.
My next couple has been canon from the get, and that is Victor Fries and Nora Fries from Batman. Victor Fries is, of course, the villain Mr. Freeze, and he would not be who he is without his undying love for his wife, Nora. Now, his original origin was a little bit different until Paul Dini came along, who is an absolute genius, and he rewrote his backstory in the Batman the Animated Series episode Heart of Ice, which, by the way, won an Emmy for outstanding writing in an animated program. And to this day, whenever I watch Heart of Ice, it always makes me cry whenever I watch it, because it is the depth of love and devotion that he has for his wife. It just so plainly shows in everything that he does. And the fact that, obviously he can't be with her because she's, has this terminal illness. And so he's, cryogenically frozen her until he can figure out what's wrong and cure her. It's so tragic. And it really makes you feel for that character that, he really isn't just this total Iceman. He does have these emotions. He's just completely buried them because he can't really think about it. Right. I mean, who would want to?
Exactly. And I think that title for the episode is perfect, Heart of Ice, too, because, I mean, he has a heart, but it has to be covered in ice because otherwise what is he going to do? Yeah. Man. He can't do anything. It's definitely one of the most popular, the most well-known episodes of Batman the Animated Series, which, I mean, honestly, it came out in the early 90s, but really to this day, it still holds up. And that should tell you something as far as the writing and the animation goes. So if you haven't watched Batman the Animated Series, definitely give it a go. You will not regret it. Nice. I have to check that out. I think it might be on Hulu right now, actually. So I want to take a peek because I've been wanting to watch more, like, kid-based shows with my daughter, but she's only 3, so I'm trying to find ones that are, like, not super freaky for her, but I want to get into, like, superhero stuff. So, yeah. So I think I'll check that one out. She's almost 4, actually, too. So that might be a little bit more appropriate. So we'll see. Yeah. All right. My next one, I don't think we've talked about this fandom at all yet on the show. But Daenerys and Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones, I just love. Okay, the beginning got off to a super rocky start because it was arranged. Daenerys was basically traded for her brother to be used, to use Khal Drogo's forces and stuff and everything. But the casting was perfect for this. They did a fantastic job. I've told you guys before, I love Jason Momoa as Khal Drogo. He's also in Stargate Atlantis, and he does a fantastic job portraying, even though he hardly speaks. Yeah, he's also Aquaman. Yeah, he hardly speaks in the show in Game of Thrones, but he just does a great job of actually showing that he cares about Daenerys. Even in their first scene after they got married together, like, he didn't want her to be upset at all. Yeah. And he just had to uphold his role in the cultural traditions because of his position. And that was what he had to do. And after a while, Daenerys found her own strength, and the two just became this power couple. And it was amazing. I was so sad when Drogo had to die. And, made me upset. I really wish he was in the series for longer.
And then the episode where he came back temporarily with that vision.
Yes.
Trying to find her dragons, and she walks into that tent and she sees Drogo with their son, and it's just just heartbreaking to see,
I know.
The potential of have been, and then that snatched away from her. And
like, why you gotta do that? Come on, George. Why you gotta do that? Yeah, but no, I loved them. And what else was I gonna say? Something else real quick. Oh yeah. What I loved about the casting too, I don't know if some of you might already know this backstory, and I don't remember if I've told it before, but when Jason Momoa met Emilia Clarke for the first time, he literally ran up to her and shouted "wifey," and she's like, she's not huge. She's like an average sized woman, and he's humongous, like 6'4" and beefy. So he comes running down the hotel lobby and like tackles her and says "wifey," and I'm like, oh my goodness. I love it. He's this big teddy bear. It's great. Yeah. It's fantastic.
My last couple for today has a little bit better of a happy ending. That is Doc Brown and Clara Clayton from Back to the Future Part 3. They just have this wonderful, wonderful chemistry together. And, I mean, part of it is obviously due to Christopher Lloyd and Mary Steenburgen just absolutely nailing their roles. But I mean, can you really contemplate just totally changing a timeline just for one person?
Man.
It boggles the mind. And then to see them go from this, rescuer, rescuee to just the starry-eyed couple falling in love and bonding, over similar scientific interests. It has just about everything that I love, which is, realistic and well-portrayed romance of a healthy relationship and also science.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what more could you really want with this couple?
Exactly. And, I had totally forgotten about these two because it's been so long since I've seen Back to the Future. And I love that you bring it up because, probably a lot of people don't even think of it. But I really enjoyed this part of the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, the last movie, it definitely has a lot of weak points in it. But the one really strong point, I think, is the Doc Brown-Clara Clayton romance. They're just... to me, it's one of the things that absolutely redeems the movie for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of why I liked the third movie. Like, I'm pretty sure it's one of the biggest reasons. They did a really great job. Yeah, it's great. All right, well, unfortunately, I have kind of a downer of a couple here as my last pick because they are an amazing couple, which is why they're on the list. But they're Tonks and Lupin from Harry Potter, which everyone knows from Harry Potter that they died. But they died together. Yeah. And it is kind of heartbreaking that they died together, but at least it's together. Because otherwise, if you had one going on without the other, that would be horrible.
That would have just broken either of them, I think.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And it's so sad because, I mean, obviously the movies don't get into it, but, I mean, they had a son together.
Yes.
I think he was about 1 year old at the time. His name was Teddy.
Yeah,
But to think that, obviously, his son is going to grow up and he's not going to know his parents.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because, I mean, they had such a great love that would have been such a great example for Teddy to see, his mom and his dad working together, being together, portraying this healthy relationship for him. And he's not going to get that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I also think of how just Tonks is just so head over heels for Lupin, even though he's a werewolf. Just thinking of their discussion or argument at St. Mungo's where Lupin's like, I don't think it's safe for you to be with me because I'm, he's a werewolf and he turns into a wolf during once a month. And she's like, I don't care. It's you. And it's just, she's so strong-headed about it. And I just love it. They're the best.
Yeah. It kind of flips the dynamic again a little bit because usually, the man is the one that, chases after the woman and tries to initiate a relationship. And in this case, Tonks is the one who had to chase Lupin and just keep at it until he was like, you know what? Yeah, I do love you and I can't deny it. And I can't, can't not be with you. So
exactly.
Let's go ahead and we'll give it a try.
Right? And you think about their relation or their personalities too. Tonks is this outgoing, goofy girl and Lupin is like this shy person who never really lets himself out of his box because of probably his werewolfness, know, and so he kind of feels the need to protect himself and doesn't really. He has a hard time being able to let somebody else in, even if it is somebody that he really cares about. All the more he wants to shut himself off, and just the fact that he did end up letting her in shows how bullheaded, I guess, Tonks can be, but also just the fact that he actually gave in to his emotions and he broke down and actually let somebody get close to him. So Tonks and Lupin forever. Yeah, yep. Tonks and Lupin forever. I gotta love it. So those are our couples that we've picked. We each picked 6 of them. Thanks for getting nerdy with us. You guys can also talk nerdy to us. What are your favorite couples from nerdy fandoms? We'd love to hear your opinions about that too. You can share that with us on our Facebook page, on our Twitter and on our Tumblr. And also share with us some topic suggestions too, because we're always looking for ways to make our shows more engaging for you guys. You can also subscribe to this podcast and other ones from Public House Media on iTunes, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio, and wherever else good podcasts are found, you can find us. Also, we love feedback, so if you liked this episode, or even if you didn't, please give us a rating and a review so that we can keep making great episodes for you. All right, I'm Emily.
And I'm Elizabeth, and thanks for talking nerdy with us
On Beauties and Headcanons.